Alrighty, so now it's the last video for this week 9. And the one thing I want to talk about just for a moment, right, is, and this is up here, these CRUD apps, right? So one of the things you want to be able to write is what we call a CRUD app, which is a create, read, update, and delete. You want to have your code be able to do all those functions for the user input, right? Um, and this basic functionality is like you can think about almost any app falls into this category. Most apps, right? Think about your social media stuff, Instagram, TikTok, right? Um, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. When you create a post, right, you're creating content. Well, you're creating something that gets stored out in a database somewhere, right? And then that tweet or whatever it is, whatever it is, video, YouTube, whatever the thing you created the content, then gets updated back to the page, right? Then you can often delete it. Okay, with some apps you can't. So we could talk about Snapchat and we could talk about Twitter, but in general, you can delete stuff and then you can update it, right? This is very common, right? So this is you'll hear this the more into coding you get, we'll hear this basic category. So in our app right now, right, we're inputting data, we're doing the C. We're not really okay. We are doing the R. We are doing the read. So we get the user input. We have the form. We're processing the form, right? We're storing that as an array, as an object inside of an array, which is awesome. And then we're presenting that data back through a loop. So I mean, we are doing a read, but as I said before, it's not persistent, which is something I want to show you how to do. And we definitely don't have the delete and the update. So referring back to the last video where I told you I had that chat with GDP, one of the things as I looked at the code example they gave me for modern CRUD apps, I understood their approach and I thought I want to do my own approach to this. And so I ended up writing code. It wasn't that because I when I looked, and honestly, this is part of what I would just warn you about Chat GDP is like you don't really want to cut and paste code out of there, nor do you really want to use GitHub Autopilot either, because really what you're learning to do is write code. And once you know how to write code, then using these tools can make you more productive. But they're not intended to write code for you yet because you need to learn how to do that first. Just my opinion. Okay. So having said that and having hopefully get, so here's in this video, I've had you create a README file, put in there first, do you understand what I mean now? Or do you get the idea of a CRUD app, right? So if you've heard this term, if you haven't, trust me, you will hear it again. Create, CRUD, create, read, update, delete. Okay. Our app does a C and a little bit of an R, but not totally. So what I did is after I had that conversation with ChatGDP last Friday, I think I ended up spending like 2 hours because what I wanted to do was do something with tables around because think about this, the data that we have, and let me just show you what this is the product. Let me just get rid of me here, right? So this is actually the product I got from my last Friday, and this is what I think we're going to do in week 10, right? Is so in this case, if I enter like 300 miles, enter 3 gallons, and I enter a good price, right? When I hit submit, it dynamically creates this table, and which is, I think, really nice. Okay. Creates the next one, right? Because what we've been doing this whole time is when the user gives us the input, we've just been appending the DOM each time And in this case, what we really want to do is we want to render based on the amount of data that we have, the number of arrays in that object. So that we can then do things like this is add event listeners here that allow us to edit and delete. And just looking at this, you might think shouldn't take that much code, right? Well, it took a bit of code. I was actually kind of surprised myself. And I'm sure again, right, there's ways to like, let me just show. And by the way, I ended up writing instead of arrow functions, I wrote regular functions. And I did, oh yeah, I ended up writing that a little differently than I did today. I should talk about that. That'd be fun. A better demonstration of a truthy value. But I ended up on the event listener. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go over this because this is what we're going to do. I'm just giving you kind of a preview, right? And actually, I'm going to end up refactoring this. But I ended up creating what for tables, right? So if you've ever heard, matter of fact, I could show you here. Like if I go inspect here and I hit the source, okay. Actually, I want to hit the element itself because this is the table, right? So you have TRs, right? So you can kind of see here, right? So it's a row, right? And that's what I love about dev tools. I can't harp enough about how much I love dev tools. And then you have a TH for a heading. Then you have another row, right? And then you have the THs. And then the TDs, right? So for the entries, so for each entry, you have a TD. So what you need to do is build this dynamically. You can't build this in HTML because you don't know how many items, how many objects you're going to have in the array. And so what you need to do is build it dynamically. Okay. And that's what you do is when you build it through code. So what we've been doing up until now is we've been just passing one input into that update DOM function and just outputting that. And it's fine for what we've needed, but now it's time for us to take our skill and up our level of what we can create dynamically through code. Okay. And again, I'm not showing you this so you write it because this is my thinking of what we're going to do in week 10 is actually end up writing this code that I ended up doing here. Okay. So, or at least I think if we actually could get through most of this, I think. And then because the thing I haven't done, and maybe we can get it all done, that'd be awesome, right? Is not only write this dynamic table, but also write the edit and the delete functionality, which I don't have yet, but I already have an idea how we want to target those and have that conversation. So that's my thinking right now. But my other thought, and this is what I was talking about last time, is I really want you to be able to write some code on your own. So if I was to say to you, hey, we have a beginning of a CRUD app. Could you imagine yourself coming up with a concept for a CRUD app, right? On your own, something that's important to you, that's not the mileage program, right? Creating all the functionality that we have so far. Like, because I'm just thinking after week 10, right, which would be us creating these CRUD operations, persistent. Remember, we got to do persistence. So I'm just curious. And what's a challenge here is that I'm asking you on the camera right now when you're all in week 8, right? Just starting into week 8 in the RL in the real world. Not everyone is at week 8, but there are definitely some working on it, which is awesome. So getting the feedback right now, which is why we missed the classroom, right? But I think we all also, enjoy the flexibility of this. So that's my plan. Let me just state it rather than to ask because I don't get immediate feedback. So my plan for week 10 is to walk you through how to write this code. But I also want you to be thinking about, and maybe I'll have through this work right, that we're doing is actually have you start thinking about like the logic you would write for the program you would create. Like start do maybe we'll actually end up doing some of that this week if I can integrate it. If not, that's my hope for week 11. All right. So what do you need to do for this assignment, right? So what do you think of that idea? Right? So that's really it's not any code. Although I do want to go back and talk about that that one form thing, but that's all right. So no coding in this one, right? Create your README file. Talk about the CRUD. Like, do you understand that now in that context, right? And then, what's your input? Like, you know what I'm going to do now, but could you see yourself? How would it feel to you to think about writing this level of functionality that we're doing through week 9, um, or actually in the week 10 on your own? Of course, getting help, right? Of course, getting help. So just, I'm curious, right? That's why I've been having you write typically something because it's really helpful for me to see your input. Some of you have given me great input about this stuff and about slowing down and making sure I cover things. So, but this time it's really about if I said, hey, in week 11, create the basic CRUD app for a concept that you come up with. And of course, I'd write out the steps. We could definitely do that. But could you imagine a concept that you would want to work on? You could tell me that, right? I want you to give me some feedback there. All right. Have a great week. This is the end of week 9. Crazy as it seems. Give me your commit history, and I'll talk to you soon.